Poor little girl tells dispatcher, "I'm not bleeding. It's inside." What they understand is crushing. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The phone rang at Riverside Police Station at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a cold October night. Officer Marlowe picked up on the second ring, her pen poised over the incident log. "Riverside Police, what's your emergency?" Heavy breathing, rain pattering in the background. Then a voice, muffled, nervous, barely above a whisper. There's a little girl on Oak Street near the old bus stop. She's alone. She's been crying for a long time. Please, someone needs to help her." "Ma'am, can you give me your—" The line went dead. Marlowe stared at the receiver, her instincts immediately on alert. She turned to her partner, Officer Cassidy, who was finishing paperwork at the adjacent desk. "We've got a possible child alone on Oak Street. Anonymous caller." Sounded scared. Cassidy grabbed her jacket without hesitation. "Let's go." The drive took 8 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Oak Street was in the older part of Riverside, where streetlights flickered and buildings leaned with age. As their patrol car rounded the corner, the headlights caught something small huddled at the bus stop. A child. Marlowe's heart clenched. She'd been a police officer for 12 years, but seeing a kid alone in the rain never got easier. They approached slowly, carefully. The little girl sat on the wet pavement, knees pulled to her chest, a torn backpack clutched in her small arms. Her dark hair was plastered to her face. Her clothes, a faded purple sweater and jeans, were soaked through. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marlowe said softly, crouching down to eye level. "I'm Officer Marlowe. This is Officer Cassidy. We're here to help you. What's your name?" The child looked up with eyes so swollen from crying they were barely open. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. "Lena," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Lena, that's a beautiful name," Cassidy said gently, kneeling beside Marlowe. "Lena, are you hurt? Can you tell us what happened?" The little girl's lip trembled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally spoke words that made both officers freeze. "I'm not bleeding, but it hurts. Here." She pointed to her chest, then moved her small hand to her stomach. "It hurts inside." Marlowe and Cassidy exchanged a look. Silent communication born from years of partnership. Something was very wrong here. "Okay, honey," Marlowe said, keeping her voice calm despite the alarm bells ringing in her head. "We're going to take you somewhere warm and safe. Can you walk?" Lena nodded and stood shakily. Cassidy draped her jacket around the child's shoulders. As they walked to the car, Marlowe scanned the dark street. Empty. Not a soul in sight. Who had made that call? In the back seat, wrapped in a blanket, Lena stared out the window with a faraway expression that didn't belong on a child's face. It was the look of someone who'd seen too much, carried too much, hurt too much. "Lena," Cassidy said gently from the driver's seat, "where's your mommy?" The little girl's eyes filled with fresh tears. She's sleeping. She sleeps a lot now." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning neither officer wanted to imagine. As they pulled into the station, Marlowe looked back at the small figure in the rearview mirror and wondered, what hurt this child on the inside? Where did she come from? And why was she all alone in the rain? The answers, she would soon discover, were far more heartbreaking than she could have imagined. The sun streamed through the thin curtains of apartment 3B at Riverside Gardens, a modest building where paint peeled and pipes groaned, but rent was affordable. The tiny kitchen, Brielle hummed softly as she flipped pancakes on a skillet that had seen better days. "Lena, baby, breakfast is ready." 7-year-old Lena emerged from the bedroom they shared, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her smile was instant and bright, the kind of smile that made everything worthwhile. "Pancakes," she squealed, climbing onto the wobbly chair at their small table. Brielle set down a plate with pancakes shaped like, well, they were supposed to be hearts, but looked more like misshapen clouds. Lena didn't care. She drowned them in syrup and dug in with enthusiasm. "Good?" Brielle asked, sipping instant coffee from a chipped mug. "The best, Mama," Lena said through a mouthful, and Brielle's heart swelled. This was their Sunday ritual. No matter how exhausting the week had been, and they were always exhausting, Sunday mornings belonged to them. Just the two of them against the world. Brielle worked 2 jobs, Mornings cleaning offices downtown, evenings waiting tables at Mel's Diner. 14-hour days, 6 days a week. Her body ached constantly. Her feet felt like they were walking on broken glass. But when she looked at Lena's face, she found the strength to keep going. "Mama, when we get our house with a yard, can we get a puppy?" Lena asked, her dark eyes hopeful. "Absolutely," Brielle promised, touching her daughter's cheek. A big fluffy one, maybe 2. It was a dream they shared often. A real house, not just a cramped apartment. A place with a yard where Lena could play safely. Maybe even a tree to climb. One day, Brielle told herself, one day I'll give her everything she deserves. At Washington Elementary, Lena was quiet but well-behaved. Her second-grade teacher, Mrs. Halloway, noticed the girl was often tired, sometimes yawning through lessons. But Lena never complained, always did her homework neatly, and had a gentleness about her that Mrs. Halloway found endearing. One Tuesday afternoon during recess, Lena was running with classmates when her shoe caught on the bottom step of the playground structure. She tumbled forward, landing hard on the asphalt. The playground monitor rushed over. "Lena, are you okay?" Lena sat up, tears streaming down her face. Her palms were scraped, her knee bleeding slightly. But what worried her most was the deep ache in her stomach where she'd landed. It hurts," she whimpered, clutching her middle. The school nurse, Mrs. Chen, cleaned her scrapes and pressed gently on Lena's abdomen. "Does this hurt?" Lena winced. "A little. Probably just bruised from the fall," Mrs. Chen said kindly, applying an ice pack. "Keep this on for 20 minutes. I'm going to send a note home to your mother. If the pain gets worse, she should take you to see a doctor, okay?" Lena nodded, but her stomach felt strange. A dull, persistent throb that wouldn't go away. That evening, Brielle came home at 10 p.m., exhausted from the dinner rush at Mel's. Lena was already in bed, having eaten the mac and cheese their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had helped her heat up. On the table was the note from school. Brielle read it, worry creasing her forehead. She tiptoed into their bedroom and gently pulled back the blanket. Lena stirred. "Hey baby, your tummy still hurt?" "A little," Lena mumbled sleepily. Brielle touched her forehead. "No fever. We'll see a doctor tomorrow, okay? I promise." "Okay, Mama." But tomorrow came with a broken washing machine that flooded the bathroom, a late bus that made Brielle miss her morning shift, and a paycheck that was somehow $50 short. The doctor's visit slipped away, replaced by immediate crises. "How's your tummy, sweetie?" Brielle asked that night. "It's okay," Lena said, not wanting to worry her mother who already looked so tired. And so the pain became Lena's quiet companion, something she learned to live with, to ignore, to hide. Because even at 7 years old, Lena understood that her mother was already carrying too much. If only someone had known that small lie would change everything. Back in the present, inside Riverside Police Station, Lena sat in the interview room designed for children. The walls were painted soft yellow, decorated with cheerful drawings of animals and rainbows. A basket of toys sat in the corner, untouched. Marlo pulled up a chair, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "Lena, honey, you're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you. We just want to help. Can you tell me where you live?" Lena's small voice was barely audible. "Riverside Gardens. Building C, apartment 3B. Cassidy wrote it down, already pulling up the address on her computer. "And your mom? Is she at home?" Marlo asked gently. Lena's eyes dropped to her lap. "She's sleeping. She sleeps a lot now. I tried to wake her up, but..." Her voice trailed off. Marlo's chest tightened. She'd seen too many cases where sleeping meant something far worse. "When's the last time you ate, sweetheart?" Lena thought about it. "Yesterday morning, I think. There was bread." Cassidy immediately left and returned minutes later with apple juice, crackers, and a turkey sandwich from the break room vending machine. Lena's eyes widened at the sight of food. "Go ahead, honey. It's all yours," Cassidy said. Lena devoured the sandwich in minutes, barely pausing to breathe. The officers watched with growing concern. This wasn't just a missed meal. This child was genuinely hungry. "Lena," Marlo said carefully, "we're going to go check on your mom, okay? Make sure she's all right. Officer Patterson here is going to stay with you. She's very nice. Is that okay?" Lena nodded, already reaching for the crackers. 20 minutes later, Marlo and Cassidy stood outside apartment 3B. The building was worse than they'd expected. Peeling paint, broken mailboxes, a pervasive smell of mildew. They knocked firmly. "Police, we need to speak with you." Silence. Marlowe knocked again, harder. "This is Riverside Police. We're doing a welfare check. Please open the door." Nothing. A door creaked open down the hall. An elderly man in a bathrobe peered out. "You looking for Brielle?" "Yes, sir. Have you seen her?" The man shuffled closer, leaning on a cane. "Not for a few days now. Used to hear the little one crying sometimes, but it's been quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe they went somewhere." "How long has it been quiet?" Cassidy asked. 3, maybe 4 days. I called the building manager yesterday, said something felt wrong, but he never came. Marlowe felt cold dread settling in her stomach. "Sir, we're going to need to enter this apartment. Do you know if the manager has a key?" "He does, but good luck finding him sober enough to help." "Then we're going in," Marlowe decided. Cassidy radioed for authorization. Within minutes, they had permission to force entry for a welfare check. The door gave way easier than expected. The lock was already damaged. The apartment opened into darkness. Marlowe flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. Electricity was off. Using their flashlights, they swept the small space. The apartment was sparse. A worn couch, a tiny kitchen table with 2 mismatched chairs, a bedroom with a single mattress on the floor. Children's drawings were taped to the walls, bright splashes of color in the gloom. But no Brielle. The refrigerator was empty except for expired milk and condiments. The cupboards held half a box of crackers and a can of soup. In the bedroom, clothes were scattered on the floor. A framed photo sat on the windowsill. Brielle and Lena, smiling at a park, taken perhaps a year ago. Both looked happier, healthier. "Marlowe, look at this," Cassidy called from the bathroom. On the sink sat 3 prescription bottles, all empty. Antidepressants. The dates showed they hadn't been refilled in months. On the counter was a stack of papers, final notices for unpaid bills, electric, water, rent. The eviction notice was dated 2 weeks ago. "She's gone," Marlowe said quietly. "The question is, did she leave voluntarily or did something happen to her?" Cassidy picked up a small notebook from beside the mattress. Inside, in shaky handwriting, were fragmented entries. "Can't afford doctor. Lena says she's fine. Please let her be fine. Lost morning job. Can't keep up. So tired. And I'm failing her. I'm failing my baby." The last entry was dated 5 days ago. "God forgive me." Marlowe closed the notebook, her throat tight. "We need to find this woman, now." Back at the station, Lena had fallen asleep on the couch in the children's room, her small body finally relaxing in the warmth. But even in sleep, her hand rested on her stomach, and her face was pinched with pain. Where was Brielle, and what had driven her to disappear, leaving her daughter alone? The answers were somewhere in this city. Marlowe was determined to find them. Morning light filtered through the station windows as Marlowe sat at her desk, surrounded by notes and cold coffee. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with questions about Lena and the missing mother. Cassidy arrived with fresh determination and 2 breakfast burritos. "Eat. We've got a long day ahead." They'd already run Brielle's name through every database available. No criminal record, no outstanding warrants, no hospital admissions in the past week. It was like she'd simply vanished. "Let's go back to the building," Marlowe suggested. Someone must know something. At Riverside Gardens, they knocked on every door in Building C. Most residents were at work, but those who answered painted a consistent picture. Mrs. Patterson from 3D was a retired teacher with kind eyes. Brielle was a sweet girl, worked so hard. I'd watch Lena sometimes when Brielle had late shifts. That child is an angel, never complained, always so polite. "When did you last see Brielle?" Cassidy asked. "Maybe 2 weeks ago. She looked exhausted, thinner than usual. I offered her some soup I'd made, but she said she wasn't hungry." Mrs. Patterson's voice cracked. "I should have pushed harder. Should have asked more questions." "This isn't your fault," Marlowe assured her. "Did Brielle mention any problems? Anyone bothering her?" "No, but she seemed scared about something. Kept saying she couldn't lose Lena, that they'd take her baby away if anyone found out how bad things were." A young man from 2A, Marcus, had different information. "I saw her about a week ago, arguing on her phone outside. She was crying, saying something like, 'I can't do this anymore and there's no other choice.' I asked if she was okay, but she just walked away. Piece by piece, a picture emerged, not of a bad mother, but of a woman drowning, desperately trying to keep her head above water while protecting her child from the truth. Back at the station, Lena was being examined by Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the pediatrician who volunteered with Child Services. Diane Harper, the social worker assigned to the case, stood nearby with a concerned expression. When Marlo and Cassidy arrived, Dr. Mitchell pulled them aside. That little girl is in pain. Real physical pain. She keeps touching her abdomen. I need to run tests, but I suspect there's something medical going on that's been ignored for some time. How long? Marlo asked. Could be weeks, could be months. Children are remarkably good at hiding discomfort, especially if they think complaining will cause problems for their parents, Diane added. I've arranged for comprehensive medical screening tomorrow morning. For now, I'm placing Lena in emergency foster care with the Johnsons, experienced, gentle people who've handled traumatized children before. Can we tell her? Marlo asked. She trusts us. In the children's room, Lena sat coloring with crayons Diane had provided. She looked up when the officers entered, and Marlo's heart broke at the hope in those young eyes. Did you find my mama? Marlo sat beside her. Not yet, sweetie, but we're looking very hard. We will find her, I promise. Is she in trouble? No, honey, we just want to make sure she's safe, just like you. Marlo chose her words carefully. Lena, we need you to stay with some very nice people tonight. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. They have a warm house, good food, and they're going to take excellent care of you while we find your mom. Lena's eyes filled with tears. But what if Mama comes home and I'm not there? What if she needs me? The question gutted Marlo. This child, who should be worrying about homework and playground games, was worried about taking care of her mother. We'll make sure your mom knows exactly where you are, Cassidy promised, kneeling down. And Lena? Officer Marlo and I are going to visit you every single day until your mom is found. That's a promise. Every day? Lena's voice was small. Every single day. That evening, as the Johnsons, a warm couple in their 50s, welcomed Lena into their home, Marlo stood on their porch watching through the window. Lena clutched her backpack, looking lost and small in the cheerful kitchen. Back in the car, Cassidy spoke first. We're missing something. A woman doesn't just disappear unless she's running from something or towards something. Marlo pulled out her notebook. The neighbor said Brielle mentioned someone would take her baby away. What if she wasn't paranoid? What if someone actually threatened that? Child Services? Or someone else? We need to dig into her life more. Who did she work for? Who did she owe money to? Who did she trust? As they drove through Riverside's darkening streets, Marlo's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check Community Hope Center on 5th Street. She was there 3 weeks ago. Pastor James might know something. Who sent this? Cassidy asked, reading over her shoulder. No idea, but it's the first real lead we've got. Tomorrow they'd visit the Hope Center. Tonight, somewhere in this city, a mother was missing and a little girl was in pain. And Marlo wouldn't rest until she brought them back together. 2 months earlier, Lena sat alone at the lunch table in Washington Elementary's cafeteria. Around her, second graders laughed and traded snacks. But Lena picked quietly at her subsidized lunch. A sad-looking sandwich and an apple with a bruise. The pain in her stomach had become constant. Sometimes sharp, sometimes dull, but always there. She'd stopped mentioning it to her mother after that first week. Brielle had enough to worry about. Mrs. Halloway noticed Lena wasn't playing at recess anymore. Instead, the little girl sat on the bench, arms wrapped around her middle, watching the other children run. Lena, don't you want to play? Mrs. Halloway asked one afternoon. My tummy hurts when I run, Lena admitted quietly. Mrs. Halloway's concern deepened. Still? From the fall last month? Lena nodded. Honey, has your mom taken you to the doctor yet? Lena's eyes dropped. She's really busy. It's okay. It doesn't hurt that much. But Mrs. Halloway could see it did. She made a note to call Brielle in for a parent-teacher conference. When Brielle arrived 3 days later, she looked like she'd aged years and months. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes hanging looser than they should, hands trembling slightly as she sat down. Thank you for coming, Ms. Whitmore, Mrs. Halloway began gently. I wanted to talk about Lena. Brielle's back straightened defensively. Is she in trouble? She's a good girl, No, nothing like that. Lena is wonderful, sweet, kind, bright. But Mrs. Holloway paused, choosing words carefully. I'm concerned she might be in pain. She mentioned her stomach has been hurting since her fall, and I noticed she stopped participating in physical activities. Brielle's face crumpled slightly before she composed herself. I know. I've been meaning to take her to the clinic, but her voice caught. The wait is 3 months for an appointment and the emergency room costs. They sent me a bill for $800 last time she had an ear infection. I'm still paying that off. Mrs. Holloway felt her frustration rise, not at Brielle, but at a system that made healthcare a luxury. There are community health centers that work on a sliding scale. I've tried. Brielle's voice rose, then immediately dropped, embarrassed. I'm sorry, I've tried. They're all booked, everyone's booked. And I work during their hours, and if I miss work, I lose the shift, and if I lose enough shifts… She pressed her hands to her face. You don't understand. I'm barely holding on as it is. I'm not judging you, Ms. Whitmore. I want to help. Then tell me how. Brielle's eyes blazed with desperation and shame. Tell me how to work 2 jobs, pay rent, feed my daughter, and somehow afford medical care that costs more than I make in a week. Tell me how to be in 3 places at once. Tell me how to… She stopped, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. The silence was heavy. I'm sorry, Brielle whispered. I shouldn't have. I'm doing my best. I swear I am. I know you are, Mrs. Holloway said softly. I can see how much you love her. But after Brielle left, humiliated and exhausted, something shifted. Mrs. Holloway meant well, but the conversation felt like judgment. Brielle stopped answering calls from the school, and when Lena came home, Brielle asked anxiously, Did your teacher say anything about me? No, Mama. She just asked if I was okay. What did you tell her? Lena saw the fear in her mother's eyes and understood instinctively what answer was needed. I told her I'm fine. Good girl. Brielle hugged her tight. We can't let people think I'm not taking care of you. They might try to take you away from me, do you understand? Lena nodded against her mother's shoulder, even though she didn't fully understand. But from that moment on, she knew. Keep quiet, don't complain. Protect Mama. At school, Lena became increasingly invisible. She stopped raising her hand in class, stopped asking to use the bathroom when the pain got bad, stopped joining group activities during free time. Her classmates forgot to include her. Teachers stopped calling on her. The school counselor's office was overbooked with more urgent cases. Lena slipped through every crack in the system. One morning, she fainted in the hallway. The nurse called it dehydration, gave her water and crackers, sent her back to class. No one thought to look deeper. At home, Brielle was unraveling. She'd lost her morning cleaning job after missing too many days. The landlord had started eviction proceedings. The electricity had been shut off twice. She held Lena each night and whispered promises she was terrified she couldn't keep. I'll fix this, baby, I promise. We'll be okay. But the weight was crushing her. The depression she'd managed for years was winning. The medication she could no longer afford had run out weeks ago, and little Lena, wise beyond her years, sensed her mother drowning and did the only thing she knew how. She stayed quiet, stayed small, stayed invisible. If only someone had truly seen her. If only someone had looked past the quiet child to see the pain she carried. But in a world of overwhelmed systems and exhausted people, Lena became just another face in the crowd. A little girl hurting in silence, teaching herself that pain was something you endured alone. In the present, Marlo and Cassidy stood outside the Community Hope Center on 5th Street. The building was modest, a converted church with faded paint and a handmade sign reading, "All are welcome." Pastor James greeted them at the door, a man in his 60s with weathered hands and compassionate eyes. "You're here about Brielle Whitmore." "How did you know?" Marlo asked. "I've been expecting someone to come asking. Come in." His office was cluttered with donation boxes and files of families needing help. He poured them coffee and sat heavily in his chair. "Brielle came here about 3 weeks ago. She was broken. That's the only word for it. She sat right where you're sitting and told me she was losing her mind." "What did she say exactly?" Cassidy asked, notebook ready. "That she couldn't afford to feed her daughter properly. That Lena was sick and she couldn't get her medical care. That she'd lost one job and was about to lose the apartment. She said," He paused, pain crossing his face. She said she was afraid she was going to hurt herself if things didn't change. Not hurt Lena. Never that. But herself. Marlowe leaned forward. Did you report this to anyone? I told her about child services, about emergency assistance programs. I even called our church network to see if anyone could help with medical costs. His voice grew bitter. Do you know what I found? A healthcare system where the free clinics have 6-month waiting lists. Emergency assistance programs so underfunded they can only help one family per month. Child services so overwhelmed they can't respond unless there's immediate danger. So what happened? Cassidy asked. Brielle was terrified that if she asked child services for help, they'd take Lena away. She'd heard stories, probably exaggerated, but when you're desperate, fear is louder than logic. I suggested she try the urgent care on Madison Street, said they sometimes work with patients on payment plans. Did she go? I don't know. That was the last time I saw her. Back at the station, Marlowe made calls. The urgent care clinic had no record of Brielle or Lena. But when she called Riverside General Hospital, a different story emerged. Yes, we have notes here, the medical records clerk said. Brielle Whitmore brought her daughter in 3 times over the past 2 months. Let me pull the files. Marlowe's grip tightened on the phone as the clerk read the details. First visit, 6 weeks ago. Lena complaining of severe stomach pain. Wait time in ER, 4 hours. Examining doctor's notes. Child appears uncomfortable but stable. Mother reports pain from fall at school several weeks prior. No obvious acute injury visible. Advised to follow up with primary care physician. Discharged. Second visit 4 weeks ago. Lena's pain worse, now accompanied by occasional fever. Wait time, 5 hours. Different doctor's notes. Examined abdomen. Some tenderness but no acute distress. Possible delayed bruising from previous fall. Recommend over-the-counter pain reliever and primary care follow-up within 2 weeks. Third visit, 2 weeks ago. Lena barely able to stand from pain. Wait time, 6 hours. Yet another doctor's notes. Child evaluated. Appears to be managing pain. Mother extremely anxious, possibly overreacting. No signs of emergency requiring immediate intervention. Social work consulted due to mother's emotional state. No concerns noted. Discharged with referral to pediatric clinic. What about that referral? Marlowe asked, her voice tight. The clinic they referred her to has a 4-month waiting list. No appointment was ever made. Marlowe hung up and turned to Cassidy, fury and heartbreak warring on her face. She tried. 3 times Brielle took Lena to the hospital. 3 times they were turned away. Cassidy pulled up security footage from Riverside General's ER. The timestamp from 2 weeks ago showed a thin woman with dark hair carrying a small girl through the doors. Hours later, that same woman sat in the waiting room, her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. A nurse approached her. The footage had no audio, but the body language told the story. The nurse gesturing toward the exit, Brielle shaking her head, pleading. Another hospital staff member joined them. Eventually, Brielle stood, holding Lena's hand, and walked out. She was begging them, Marlowe whispered, and they sent her away. Meanwhile, Dr. Mitchell completed Lena's medical examination. When she called Marlowe, her voice was grim. You need to see this report. Lena has a serious internal infection, likely caused by an untreated injury from that fall months ago. It's progressed significantly. We're talking about something that should have been caught and treated weeks ago. How bad is it? Bad enough that she'll need surgery soon. And Marlowe, this child is severely malnourished. Her iron levels are critically low. She has untreated cavities causing chronic pain. Vision problems that should have been corrected with glasses years ago. This isn't just one missed doctor's visit. This is systemic neglect, not by the mother, but by every institution that should have caught this. That evening, Marlowe went through Brielle's apartment again. In a drawer, she found a folder stuffed with papers. Medical bills totaling over $3,000. Collection notices. A letter from the hospital demanding payment. And beneath it all, a journal entry. Took Lena to ER again today. They said she's fine, to stop worrying so much. But I know my baby. I know she's hurting. Why won't anyone listen? I have $47 to my name. Rent is due. We haven't had real food in days. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch her hurt and be powerless to help her. God, please, just tell me what to do. Marlo sat on the floor of that empty apartment and finally understood. This wasn't a case of a bad mother. This was a woman crushed by poverty, failed by healthcare, ignored by the systems designed to help. And somewhere in Riverside, Brielle was still missing. A mother who'd tried everything and watched it all fall apart. The lead came at dawn. A shelter volunteer named Rita called the station, her voice hesitant. I think I might have seen the woman you're looking for. The one on the news about the missing child. Marlo was out the door in minutes, Cassidy right behind her. The Riverside Community Shelter was located in the Warehouse District, a converted industrial building that provided temporary beds for the city's most vulnerable. Rita met them at the entrance, wringing her hands. She came in 4 nights ago. Wouldn't give her name, wouldn't talk to anyone. Just took a cot in the back corner. I didn't think much of it until I saw the news this morning. That picture of Brielle Whitmore. I'm almost certain it's her. Is she still here? Marlo asked urgently. Yes, but you should prepare yourselves. She's not in good condition. Rita led them through rows of cots where people slept or stared blankly at the ceiling. At the far end, in the darkest corner, a figure lay curled on a thin mattress, facing the wall. Brielle, Marlo called softly. No response. Marlo approached slowly, the way she'd approach anyone fragile and frightened. Brielle Whitmore, my name is Officer Marlo. I'm here about Lena. At her daughter's name, the figure moved. Slowly, painfully. She turned over. Marlo had to fight to keep her expression neutral. The woman before her bore little resemblance to the smiling mother in the photograph from the apartment. Brielle was gaunt, her skin pale and waxy. Her eyes were hollow, ringed with dark circles so deep they looked like bruises. Her lips were cracked, her hair matted. Lena, Brielle whispered, her voice like gravel. Is my baby. She's safe, Marlo said quickly, kneeling beside the cot. Lena is safe. She's with kind people who are taking care of her. The relief that flooded Brielle's face was immediate, and then came the tears, great racking sobs that shook her entire body. She tried to sit up but didn't have the strength. I need an ambulance, Cassidy said into her radio, already checking Brielle's pulse. Subject is severely dehydrated and malnourished. Possible medical emergency. No, Brielle gasped, trying to wave her away. No hospitals. Can't afford. They'll just send me away again. You need medical attention, Marlo said firmly but gently. And this time I'm making sure you get it. I promise. In the ambulance, Brielle drifted in and out of consciousness. When she was lucid, words tumbled out in fragments. I tried, I swear I tried. It took her to the hospital 3 times. They said she was fine, but I knew. A mother knows. I know you tried, Marlo said, holding her hand. I saw the records. I know you fought for her. Lost my job. Couldn't pay rent, the eviction notice. I was so scared they'd take her and put her in the system. I heard stories, kids getting lost in foster care. I couldn't. Brielle, why did you leave her? Cassidy asked, not unkindly. Why did you disappear? Brielle's eyes filled with fresh tears. Because I was going to break. I could feel it. My mind was going. The depression, the stress. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping. I started having thoughts, dark thoughts. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I was afraid I'd do something terrible. Not to Lena, never to Lena, but to myself. And if I was gone, who would take care of her? Understanding dawned on Marlo's face. So you made the call. The anonymous tip. Brielle nodded weakly. I knew if I called, you'd find her, you'd make sure she was safe. I couldn't take care of her anymore, but I could do that one last thing, make sure someone else could. You saved her life, Marlo said, her voice thick with emotion. By making that call, you saved your daughter's life. Did I? Brielle's laugh was bitter and broken. I failed her. I'm her mother. I was supposed to protect her and I couldn't even get her to a doctor. I couldn't feed her properly. I couldn't keep a roof over her head. What kind of mother does that make me? A mother who did everything she possibly could in an impossible situation, Cassidy said firmly. Brielle, you worked 2 jobs. You took her to the hospital 3 times. You sought help from churches, clinics, everyone you could think of. The system failed you, not the other way around. At Riverside General, the same hospital that had turned them away before. Brielle was admitted immediately. The ER doctor examining her was shocked. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, dangerously low blood pressure. How long have you been like this? I don't know, Brielle whispered. Weeks? Months? Time stopped meaning anything. As they hooked her up to IVs and monitors, Brielle grabbed Marlowe's sleeve. Please, I need to see her. I need to see Lena. I need to tell her I'm sorry. I need her to know I love her. You will, Marlowe promised. As soon as you're stable, we'll arrange it, but Brielle, you need to focus on getting better now. For Lena, she needs her mother. She deserves better than me. She deserves you, healthy and whole, so fight, get better. Because that little girl loves you more than anything in this world. As the doctors worked, Marlowe stepped into the hallway and called Diane, the social worker. We found the mother. She's alive, but barely. Diane, this woman didn't abandon her child. She saved her. And when Lena is ready, they need to see each other. I'll arrange it, Diane said softly. That little girl keeps asking about her mama. I think seeing each other might help them both heal. In separate buildings across Riverside, a mother and daughter both cried themselves to sleep that night. One from exhaustion and relief, the other from fear and longing. But for the first time in weeks, both had hope. Tomorrow, they would see each other. And maybe, just maybe, they could begin to find their way back. 3 days later, Brielle was stable enough for visitors. The hospital had treated her dehydration and malnutrition, started her on medication for depression, and connected her with a patient advocate to navigate insurance and billing. She looked better, still thin and tired, but alive in a way she hadn't been at the shelter. Diane arranged the visit carefully. She'd explained to Lena that Mommy had been very sick and was getting better, that they would see each other soon. The little girl had brightened immediately, her first real smile since being found. Marlowe drove Lena to the hospital, Cassidy riding along for support. In the back seat, Lena clutched a drawing she'd made, 2 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun, labeled Me and Mama. Is Mommy really okay? Lena asked for the 10th time. She's getting better every day, Marlowe assured her, and she's so excited to see you. In the hospital room, Brielle sat propped against pillows, trembling with anticipation. When the door opened and Lena appeared, time seemed to stop. Mama! Lena cried, running across the room. Brielle opened her arms, and her daughter crashed into them. They held each other, both crying, neither willing to let go. My baby, my sweet baby, Brielle sobbed, kissing Lena's hair, her forehead, her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You're okay, Mama, you're okay. Lena patted her mother's face like she was the parent comforting the child. I was so scared. I know, sweetheart. I was scared too. But we're going to be okay now, I promise. Marlowe and Cassidy stood by the door, both wiping their eyes. Even Diane, who'd seen hundreds of difficult family situations, had to turn away for a moment. Lena showed her mother the drawing. See? I drew us. Together. It's beautiful, Brielle whispered, holding it like it was precious treasure. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. For 20 minutes, they simply held each other, talking softly. Brielle asked about the Johnsons, and Lena reported they were nice. They had a cat named Whiskers, and Mrs. Johnson made really good grilled cheese sandwiches. I'm glad they're treating you well, Brielle said, though the words clearly hurt. The thought of someone else caring for her daughter, even temporarily, was a knife in her heart. Then Lena said something that broke everyone in the room. Mama, my tummy still hurts, but I didn't want to tell them because I didn't want them to think you didn't take care of me. Brielle's face crumpled. Oh, baby, you can tell them. You should tell them. That's my fault, not yours. Mama should have done better. Diane stepped forward gently. Lena, sweetheart, the doctors know about your tummy. They're going to help make the hurt go away. And Brielle, you did everything you could. We're all working together now to make sure both of you get what you need. The social worker explained the plan. Brielle would continue receiving treatment, medical and mental health support. Lena would undergo the necessary medical procedures. The state was providing temporary housing assistance. A family therapist would work with them both. The goal, Diane said carefully, is reunification, to bring you back together as a family. But we need to make sure you're both healthy and stable first. How long? Brielle asked, gripping Lena's hand desperately. That depends on several factors, but we're not trying to separate you. We're trying to help you. When it was time for Lena to leave, the separation was agonizing. I don't want to go, Lena cried, clinging to her mother. I know, baby, but you'll come back. Officer Marlowe promised she'll bring you back, right? Brielle looked at Marlowe with pleading eyes. Every week, Marlowe confirmed. That's a promise, Lena. You'll see your mama every single week. That night, back at the Johnsons' house, Lena was quieter than usual. She picked at dinner, then asked if she could call Officer Marlowe. What's wrong, sweetie? Marlowe answered immediately. I just wanted to make sure Mama's still okay, that she didn't disappear again. Marlowe's heart ached. Your mama is safe in the hospital, Lena. I checked on her an hour ago. She's thinking about you just like you're thinking about her. Promise? I promise. And Lena, your mama loves you so much. Everything she did, even the scary stuff, was because she loves you. I know, Lena whispered. I love her too. After hanging up, Marlowe sat in her car outside the Johnsons' house for a long time, thinking about the fragility of families, the cruelty of poverty, and the strength of a mother's love. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brielle sent through Diane. Thank you for bringing her back to me, even for a little while. Please take care of my baby until I can again. Marlowe texted back. She's safe. Focus on getting better. Lena needs you healthy and whole. For the first time in this entire case, Marlowe felt genuine hope. The road ahead would be difficult. Medical procedures, therapy, navigating bureaucracy, rebuilding stability. But this mother and daughter loved each other fiercely. With the right support, maybe they could overcome what had broken them. Maybe there could be healing after all. But that night, while everyone slept, Lena's pain worsened. The infection inside her, ignored for so long, was about to demand immediate attention. The crisis was far from over. At 2:47 a.m., Mrs. Johnson heard a sound that would haunt her. A soft thump followed by silence. She rushed to Lena's room and found the little girl collapsed on the floor beside her bed. Lena, honey, wake up. She touched the child's forehead and recoiled. Lena was burning with fever. Mr. Johnson called 911 while his wife cradled Lena, who drifted in and out of consciousness, whimpering about the pain in her stomach. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Marlowe's phone rang as the paramedics loaded Lena into the vehicle. It's bad, Mrs. Johnson said, her voice shaking. She just collapsed. They're taking her to Riverside General right now. Marlowe was dressed and out the door in 90 seconds, calling Cassidy on the way. In the emergency room, Dr. Kemper took one look at Lena's vitals and called for immediate intervention. Her fever had spiked to 104 degrees. Her abdomen was rigid and tender. Blood work showed dangerous levels of infection. Get me a surgical consult now, he ordered. This child needs emergency surgery. Within the hour, a pediatric surgeon, Dr. Rachel Torres, examined the scans and imaging. What she found made her furious. This is an advanced internal infection, likely from an untreated injury sustained months ago. It's created complications that should never have gotten this far. She looked at the medical team. How was this missed? Marlowe, standing outside the examination room with Diane, heard every word. She thought of those 3 ER visits. 3 times Brielle had begged for help, 3 times they'd been sent away. Dr. Torres emerged, her expression grave. Lena needs surgery immediately. The infection has spread. We're looking at significant intervention. Will she be okay? Marlowe asked, her throat tight. We'll do everything we can, but there will likely be lasting effects. Her body has been fighting this for too long. Diane made the hardest call of her career, waking Brielle to tell her that her daughter was in emergency surgery. Brielle arrived at the hospital in a wheelchair, accompanied by a nurse. Hospital policy wouldn't normally allow it, but Dr. Kemper made an exception. When she saw Marlowe and Cassidy in the surgical waiting area, she broke down. This is my fault. I should have done more, pushed harder. Stop, Marlowe said firmly, gripping her shoulders. This is not your fault. You tried 3 times to get help. The system failed you both. But if I'd had money, if I'd had insurance, if I'd been stronger, if our healthcare system didn't punish poor people for being poor, Cassidy interrupted, her own anger rising. If hospitals actually listened to mothers instead of dismissing them, If emergency rooms didn't turn away sick children because their families can't pay, that's what failed Lena, not you. The surgery lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of Brielle pacing, praying, crying. 4 hours of Marlo and Cassidy keeping vigil beside a woman they barely knew, but had come to care deeply about. When Dr. Torres finally emerged, still in scrubs, everyone stood. "She's alive," the surgeon said first, and Brielle nearly collapsed with relief. The surgery went as well as could be expected. We addressed the infection and repaired the internal damage. And, Marlo prompted, hearing the unspoken "but" in the doctor's tone. Dr. Torres's expression was somber. The infection caused significant scarring. Lena will have chronic health issues that require ongoing management. She'll need regular medical monitoring, possibly for the rest of her life. She may have digestive complications, pain episodes, limitations on physical activity. "But she'll live," Brielle whispered. "Yes, she'll live. But this could have been prevented if she'd received proper care months ago." Brielle buried her face in her hands, torn between relief and devastation. Later, sitting by Lena's bedside in recovery, Brielle held her daughter's small hand and watched her sleep. The little girl looked so fragile, hooked up to monitors and IVs. "I'm so sorry, baby," Brielle whispered. "I tried. I really tried." "I know you did," came a weak voice. Lena's eyes fluttered open. "Mama, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. The doctors fixed your tummy. It doesn't hurt as much now." Brielle kissed her daughter's forehead. "That's good, baby. You're going to get all better." Outside the room, Marlo confronted Dr. Kemper. This child came to this hospital 3 times, and was sent away each time. Dr. Kemper pulled up the records, reading them with growing dismay. Different doctors each visit, overwhelmed ER, insurance status flagged. This shouldn't have happened. But it did. How many other kids slipped through the cracks like this? The doctor had no answer, and that silence was damning. The hospital discharged Lena after 5 days, armed with prescriptions, follow-up appointments, and a thick folder of instructions. Brielle, still recovering herself, was released into a transitional housing program, a small apartment in a supervised building for families in crisis. But before reunification could happen, there was a court hearing to determine Lena's custody. The morning of the hearing, Brielle sat in Diane's office, trembling. "What if they don't give her back to me? What if they decide I'm not fit?" "We're going to tell the truth," Diane said firmly, "about what you went through, what you tried to do, and what you're doing now to build a better life." In the courthouse, Brielle faced a judge who'd seen countless custody cases. Judge Margaret Chen was known for being fair but uncompromising when it came to children's welfare. The prosecutor presented the facts. A child found alone, malnourished, with untreated medical conditions. A mother who disappeared, leaving her daughter vulnerable. On paper, it looked damning. Then Diane presented her counter-argument. She walked through Brielle's employment history. 2 jobs, sometimes 3, working herself to exhaustion. The medical bills showing repeated attempts to seek care. The ER records proving Brielle had tried to get help and been turned away. "Your Honor, this is not a case of willful neglect. This is a case of systemic failure. Ms. Whitmore did everything a loving mother could do with 0 resources and no support system." Marlo took the stand, her uniform lending weight to her words. "I've been a police officer for 12 years. I've seen real child endangerment. This isn't that. This is a mother who loved her child so much that when she realized she couldn't care for her anymore, she made sure someone else could. That anonymous call that brought Lena to safety? That was Brielle. She saved her own daughter's life." Cassidy testified next, her voice passionate. "Brielle Whitmore is not a villain. She's a victim of poverty, of a healthcare system that treats poor people as disposable, of a society that punishes single mothers for struggling. She fought for her daughter every single day until she literally had nothing left to give." Then came the most important testimony. The judge asked to speak with Lena. In chambers, with Diane present, Judge Chen spoke gently. "Lena, do you know why you're here?" "To see if I can go home with Mama," Lena said quietly. "That's right. Can you tell me about your mom?" Lena's face brightened. "Mama works really hard. She makes me pancakes on Sundays even when she's tired. She sings to me before bed. She always says I'm the best thing that ever happened to her. Were you scared when your mama wasn't there? Lena nodded. But I knew she didn't leave because she didn't love me. Mama always tells me she loves me more than the whole world. What do you want, Lena? Without hesitation, I want to be with my mama. We take care of each other. Those simple words carried more weight than any legal argument. Back in the courtroom, Judge Chen reviewed the documentation one final time. The room was silent, except for the sound of Brielle's ragged breathing. This case, the judge began, has forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about our systems. I see a mother who fell through every safety net we claim to have. I see a child whose pain was ignored by institutions that should have helped. Brielle closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. However, Judge Chen continued, I also see genuine progress. Ms. Whitmore is receiving mental health treatment. She's employed part-time with room for advancement. She has stable housing through the transitional program. Most importantly, she has demonstrated that her love for her daughter is real and enduring. Brielle dared to hope. Therefore, I am granting supervised reunification. Custody will be returned to Ms. Whitmore under the following conditions: mandatory family therapy, regular home visits from child services, maintained employment and housing, and guaranteed medical care for Lena. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate review. Brielle's sob was one of pure relief. Thank you so much. Don't thank me, Judge Chen said sternly. Thank the people who fought for you. And Ms. Whitmore, don't let them down. Don't let your daughter down. Use this second chance. I will, I swear I will. Outside the courthouse, Lena ran into her mother's arms. We can go home together? Yes, baby. We're going home together. Marlo and Cassidy watched the reunion, both smiling through tears. They'd fought hard for this outcome, believing fiercely that this family deserved to heal together. But as Diane reminded them later, the real work starts now. Court orders don't fix poverty. They don't cure trauma. Brielle and Lena have a long road ahead. But they'll walk it together, Marlo said. That's what matters. That night in their small transitional apartment, Brielle tucked Lena into bed. Really tucked her in, for the first time in months. She sang their old lullaby, the one about stars and dreams. Mama, Lena said sleepily. Yes, sweetheart? Are we going to be okay now? Brielle kissed her forehead. We're going to try really hard to be okay. And we're not alone anymore. We have people helping us. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. More than you'll ever know. 2 weeks after reunification, Marlo knocked on the door of apartment 4C in the transitional housing complex. Brielle answered, looking healthier than she had in months, color in her cheeks, light returning to her eyes. Come in. Lena's been watching for you all morning. Officer Marlo. Lena appeared, running to hug her. Look what I drew. The picture showed 3 figures, Lena, Brielle, and a woman in a police uniform. That's you, Lena explained proudly. You're part of our family now. Marlo's throat tightened. I'm honored, sweetheart. Over tea, Brielle shared the week's progress. I started the assistant manager training at the dry cleaner. The hours are better, and there's health insurance after 90 days. Real health insurance. That's wonderful, Marlo said genuinely. And therapy is hard, but helpful. I'm learning to ask for help instead of drowning in silence. Brielle glanced at Lena, who was coloring at the table. I'm learning that being strong doesn't mean doing everything alone. A knock interrupted them. Mrs. Halloway, Lena's teacher, stood in the doorway holding a box of children's books. I hope it's okay that I came, she said tentatively. I wanted to bring these for Lena. And to apologize, Brielle. I should have done more when I saw the signs. Brielle's eyes welled up. You tried. You cared. That meant everything. What started as a brief visit turned into an impromptu gathering. Cassidy arrived with groceries. The Johnsons stopped by with Whiskers the cat in a carrier for a play date. Even Diane came with information about a community support group for single parents. Lena, surrounded by adults who genuinely cared about her, beamed with happiness. Later, Marlo noticed something profound. This apartment, barely furnished and small, felt more like a home than many mansions she'd seen, because it was filled with something money couldn't buy, people who showed up. You've built a village, Marlo observed to Brielle. I didn't build it. Brielle said, watching Lena laugh as Mrs. Halloway read a story. You all did. You saved us. No, Marlowe corrected gently. You saved yourselves by finally letting people in. As the evening wound down, Lena hugged each visitor goodbye with the exuberance of a child who'd learned that connections weren't scary. They were lifelines. That night, Brielle wrote in a new journal Diane had given her. Today I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. And love isn't just what you feel, it's what you accept from others. For the first time in years, Brielle felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. But the true test of their healing was still to come. 6 weeks into reunification, Lena had her first follow-up appointment with Dr. Torres. Brielle sat in the examination room, holding her daughter's hand, anxiety written across her face. Dr. Torres reviewed the test results and smiled, a rare sight. Lena's healing well. The medication is working and her body is responding beautifully to treatment. So, she's okay? Brielle asked, hardly daring to believe it. She'll need ongoing monitoring, but yes, with proper care, she can live a full, happy life. Dr. Torres looked directly at Brielle. You got her the help she needed. That took courage. Walking out of the hospital, Brielle felt 10 pounds lighter. Lena skipped beside her, chattering about the stickers Dr. Torres had given her. At work, Brielle's manager, Mr. Chen, called her into his office. She tensed. Old habits of expecting bad news. Relax, he said kindly. I wanted to tell you that you're doing excellent work. We'd like to offer you the assistant manager position permanently. It comes with a raise and full benefits starting immediately. Brielle's hands shook as she signed the paperwork. Health insurance, dental coverage, sick days. Things she'd once thought were luxuries were now realities. That evening, family therapy session number 8 brought a breakthrough. The therapist, Dr. Kim, asked Lena to describe her biggest fear. That mama will disappear again, Lena whispered. Brielle's heart broke. Baby, I'm not going anywhere, I promise. But you promised before, and then you were gone. The raw honesty hung in the air. Dr. Kim nodded encouragingly. Brielle, how can you help Lena trust that promise? Brielle thought carefully. I can't just tell you, sweetie. I have to show you. Every single day I'll be here. And when I'm scared or struggling, I'll tell you instead of hiding it. Because you deserve honesty. And Lena, Dr. Kim said gently, your mama is learning to take care of herself so she can take care of you. That's what love looks like. Not being perfect, but trying every day. Lena nodded slowly, processing this truth that was both simple and profound. At Riverside Elementary, Mrs. Halloway noticed a transformation in Lena. The quiet, withdrawn child had started raising her hand in class again. She joined group activities. She smiled more. One afternoon, Lena volunteered to share her "What I'm Grateful For" assignment. I'm grateful for my mama, who works really hard. I'm grateful for Officer Marlowe and Officer Cassidy, who helped us. I'm grateful for Mrs. Johnson's cat, Whiskers. And I'm grateful that when you're hurt inside, people can help you heal. The classroom was silent. Several students had tears in their eyes. Even 7-year-olds understood the weight of those words. That weekend, Marlowe and Cassidy took Brielle and Lena to the park, a simple outing that felt monumental. Watching Lena play on the swings, Brielle said quietly, I never thought we'd have normal again. This is better than normal, Cassidy replied. This is earned. This is real. As the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink, Lena ran back to her mother, breathless and happy. Mama, did you see how high I went? I saw, baby. You were flying. Brielle hugged her daughter close, feeling gratitude so intense it was almost painful. They'd been to the edge of complete destruction and somehow found their way back. The journey wasn't over. There would still be hard days, setbacks, moments of fear. But they were walking forward together, surrounded by people who refused to let them fall. We're going to make it, Brielle whispered into Lena's hair, and for the first time, she truly believed it. 3 months into reunification, Diane arrived for her scheduled home visit with concerning news. There's a review hearing next week. The court wants to assess your progress before making the custody arrangement permanent. Brielle's old fears surged. What if they decide I'm not enough? What if? Then we show them everything you've accomplished. Diane interrupted firmly. Your employment record, Lena's medical improvements, your therapy attendance. The evidence speaks for itself. But the night before the hearing, Brielle's anxiety spiraled. What if one misstep cost her everything? What if the judge saw her past failures instead of her present efforts? Lena found her mother sitting on the floor, breathing heavily, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, are you okay?" Brielle tried to compose herself, but the panic was overwhelming. Then she remembered Dr. Kim's advice. Let her see your humanity. "I'm scared, baby," Brielle admitted. "Tomorrow the judge decides if we get to stay together forever, and I'm terrified of losing you." Lena sat beside her mother and took her hand, a child comforting an adult. "But Mama, we're doing good now. You have a job. I'm not sick anymore. We have friends. The judge will see that, right?" The simple logic from her 7-year-old daughter cut through Brielle's panic. "You're right, you're absolutely right. And even if you're scared, we're together. That's what matters." Brielle pulled Lena close. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from you, Mama." The hearing was less intimidating than the first. Judge Chen reviewed Diane's detailed reports, noting every milestone. Stable employment for 3 months, perfect therapy attendance, Lena's improved health, even testimonials from teachers and neighbors. "Ms. Whitmore," the judge said, "when you first appeared before me, I saw a woman broken by circumstances. Today, I see a mother who's fighting, not just for her daughter, but for herself. That's the difference." Brielle stood straighter. "I'm not perfect, Your Honor. I still have hard days. But I'm learning that it's okay to struggle as long as you keep trying." Judge Chen reviewed the final documents. The courtroom held its breath. "After careful consideration of all evidence presented, I am terminating court supervision and granting full custody to Brielle Whitmore, effective immediately." The words took a moment to register. Then Brielle gasped, covering her mouth as tears flowed freely. "You've earned this," Judge Chen continued. "But remember, this isn't the end of your journey, it's the beginning. Continue with the support systems you've built. Continue being honest about your struggles. Continue showing your daughter that strength isn't perfection, it's perseverance." "I will, Your Honor, I promise." Outside the courthouse, Lena jumped into her mother's arms. "We did it, Mama. We really did it." Marlo and Cassidy stood nearby, both emotional. They'd invested months in this family, and seeing this moment made every sleepless night worth it. "Thank you," Brielle said to them, her voice breaking, "for believing in us when we couldn't believe in ourselves." "You did the hard work," Marlo replied. "We just walked beside you." That evening, their small apartment was filled with celebration. The Johnsons brought cake, Mrs. Halloway brought flowers. Diane brought official paperwork confirming Lena was enrolled in the after-school program with medical coverage guaranteed. As the gathering wound down, Brielle stood at the window watching the sunset. Cassidy joined her. "What are you thinking?" Cassidy asked. "That 6 months ago I thought my life was over. I thought I'd failed at everything that mattered, but I was wrong. The hardest moment of my life led to the biggest transformation. That's what happens when you let people help carry the weight." Brielle nodded. "I used to think asking for help meant I was weak. Now I know it's the bravest thing I've ever done." In the other room, Lena laughed at something Mr. Johnson said. The sound pure and joyful, a sound that had been missing for too long. "She's happy," Brielle whispered. "Really, truly happy." "So are you," Cassidy observed. And it was true. Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the struggle, happiness had found its way back. 6 months after the final hearing, Brielle stood before a room full of social workers, advocates, and community organizers. Diane had asked her to share her story at a conference about systemic barriers in healthcare and social services. Her hands trembled as she approached the microphone, but Marlo's encouraging nod from the front row steadied her. "My name is Brielle Whitmore," she began, her voice growing stronger, "and I'm here to tell you about the day I became invisible." She spoke about working 2 jobs while watching her daughter suffer, about 3 trips to the emergency room where concerns were dismissed, about the shame of poverty, the isolation of depression, the terror of losing everything. "I wasn't a bad mother," she said, emotion thick in her voice. "I was a poor mother, and in our system that's treated as the same thing." The room was utterly silent. "But I'm also here to tell you about the people who saw me when I was invisible. The police officers who didn't just process a case, they fought for my family. the social worker who advocated instead of judged, the teacher who kept showing up. They didn't save us with money or resources, they saved us by caring enough to look deeper. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. Afterward, a young woman approached her, tears streaming down her face. "I'm a single mom working 3 jobs. My son has been sick for weeks and I can't get him into a doctor. I thought I was alone. Thank you for showing me I'm not." Brielle hugged her tightly. "You're not alone, and you're not failing. The system is failing you." She pulled out Diane's card. "Call this number, today, don't wait like I did." Meanwhile, at Washington Elementary, Lena sat in the school counselor's office. Not because she was in trouble, but because she'd volunteered for the peer support program. "Why do you want to help other kids?" the counselor asked. "Because I know what it feels like when nobody listens to you," Lena said simply. "And I know how much better it feels when someone does." At 8 years old, Lena was becoming an advocate in her own right. The kind of child who noticed when classmates seemed sad or hungry, who shared her lunch without being asked, who told teachers when something seemed wrong. That evening, Brielle received a call from the hospital. Dr. Torres wanted to meet with her about a new program. At the hospital the next day, Dr. Torres explained, "We're creating a patient advocacy position, someone to help families navigate the healthcare system, especially families who've fallen through the cracks. I immediately thought of you." "Me? But I don't have medical training." "You have something more valuable, lived experience. You know what it's like to be dismissed, to be scared, to need help, and not know how to ask for it. That makes you the perfect person to help others." Brielle couldn't believe it. A full-time position with benefits, helping families avoid what she'd endured. It felt like purpose emerging from pain. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. Her first case was a young father whose daughter had chronic pain. Brielle sat with him in the ER waiting room and said words that changed everything. "I believe you. Your daughter is in pain, and we're going to make sure someone listens." 4 hours later, that little girl was properly diagnosed and receiving treatment. The father wept with relief. "You saved her," he said. "No," Brielle replied gently. "You saved her by not giving up. I just helped you be heard." That night, tucking Lena into bed, Brielle reflected on how far they'd come. From that dark apartment with no electricity to this warm, stable home. From isolation to community. From invisibility to purpose. "Mama, are you happy?" Lena asked. "Yes, baby, I really am. Are you?" "The happiest." Lena yawned. "Mama, can I tell you something?" "Always." "I'm glad all the bad stuff happened." Brielle was startled. "Why, sweetheart?" "Because now we know we're strong, and we know people love us. We didn't know that before." Wisdom beyond years. Brielle kissed her daughter's forehead, marveling at the resilience of this remarkable child. "You're right, baby. We're stronger than we ever knew." As Lena drifted to sleep, Brielle whispered a promise into the darkness. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure other families don't suffer like we did." It was a promise she intended to keep. 1 year after that rainy October night, Riverside Police Station held a small ceremony. Chief Morrison stood at the podium, addressing a room filled with community members, city officials, and press. "Today we honor 2 officers who exemplify what it means to serve with compassion." Officers Marlowe and Cassidy didn't just respond to a call, they changed lives. Marlowe and Cassidy stepped forward, both uncomfortable with the attention. But in the front row sat Brielle and Lena, beaming with pride, and that made it worthwhile. After the ceremony, Lena ran to hug both officers. "You're heroes," she declared. "No, sweetheart," Marlowe said, kneeling down. "Your mama is the hero. She's the one who fought when fighting seemed impossible." Brielle joined them, healthy and radiant in ways that went beyond physical appearance. "We're all heroes," she said. "Every person who chooses to see someone who's hurting and decides to help. That's heroism." The local news interviewed Brielle about her journey. She spoke candidly about poverty, mental health, and systemic failures, no longer ashamed, but determined to spark change. "People ask me how this happened," she said to the camera. "How does a child end up sick, and a mother end up desperate in one of the wealthiest countries in the world? The answer is simple and devastating. We've built systems that punish poverty instead of addressing it. The story aired that evening, reaching thousands. Within days, the hospital announced policy changes, mandatory social work consultations for families who repeatedly visit the ER, expanded charity care programs, and sensitivity training for staff about economic barriers to healthcare. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was a start. At the one-year mark, Diane organized a gathering at Community Hope Center. Everyone who'd been part of Lena and Brielle's journey attended. Pastor James, Mrs. Halloway, the Johnsons, Dr. Torres, even Judge Chen. "We're here to celebrate survival and transformation," Diane announced, "but also to remember that Brielle and Lena's story isn't unique. There are hundreds of families in our city right now facing the same struggles. The question is, what will we do about it?" The gathering became the foundation for the Riverside Family Support Initiative, a coalition of healthcare providers, schools, social services, and community organizations committed to catching families before they fell. Brielle became its spokesperson, traveling to schools and community centers, telling her story again and again, never letting people forget that behind every statistic was a human being in pain. On a quiet Sunday morning, exactly 1 year after they'd been reunified, Brielle made pancakes while Lena set the table. Their apartment was still modest, but it was filled with photos, artwork, and the warmth of genuine happiness. "Mama, do you remember when we had nothing?" Lena asked. "I remember, baby. We have so much now." Brielle looked around, at the second-hand furniture, the clearance rack clothes, the simple breakfast. By material standards, they still had very little. But Lena was right. "We have everything that matters," Brielle agreed. After breakfast, they walked to the park where Marlo and Cassidy waited. It had become their Sunday ritual, a reminder that family isn't just blood, it's the people who choose to show up. As Lena played, the three women sat on a bench watching her. "She's thriving," Cassidy observed. "She is," Brielle agreed. "The doctors say her pain is managed. She'll have challenges, but she'll be okay." "And you?" Marlo asked. Brielle smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I'm okay too. Some days are hard, but I'm not facing them alone anymore. That makes all the difference." Lena ran over, breathless and happy. "Mama, watch this." She attempted a cartwheel, lopsided and imperfect but filled with pure joy. "Beautiful baby," Brielle called out. As the sun warmed their faces and Lena's laughter filled the air, Brielle understood something profound. Pain doesn't always leave scars you can see. Sometimes it changes you from the inside, breaking you down so you can be rebuilt stronger, wiser, more compassionate. She'd been broken. They'd both been broken, but they'd also been healed. Not by money or systems, but by people who chose to see their pain and respond with love. "Thank you," Brielle said quietly to Marlo and Cassidy, "for seeing us when we were invisible." "You were never invisible," Marlo replied. "You were just waiting for someone to really look." And that, Brielle realized, was the message she'd spend the rest of her life sharing. Look deeper, listen harder, care more. Because somewhere in your community right now, there's a mother fighting silently. There's a child hurting invisibly. There's a family one crisis away from falling apart. The question isn't whether pain exists, it always will. The question is whether we'll choose to see it and respond with compassion. As Lena cartwheeled across the grass, Brielle made a silent promise. She would spend every day making sure that invisible families became visible, that silent pain found voice, and that no child would ever have to whisper, "It hurts inside," without someone truly hearing. Their story had ended, but their purpose had just begun.